Committee, and we are opening our meeting March 3rd, Thursday, March 3rd, 2022 at 6:30. I'm going to do a call to order and do a roll call vote. We have 6 members present and 1 may be on the phone, I'm not sure. Angelo? Dan?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
And Mark Keller?
Here.
Great. 6 people are present. Do we have Dale on the phone? Matt, do you know?
No one's on there right now.
Okay, well, we'll continue. There should be Dale Kennedy should be joining us. Well, welcome, folks that are here and out there in Channel 18 land. This is the first real meeting of the Finance Committee since we received the budget from the Selectmen on February 22nd. We have disseminated a lot of information amongst the group here that we've received from the administration on the various budgets in town, on the various receipts that the town gets in. And we've asked Carol Coppola and Joe Powers to attend tonight. Joe has had a prior commitment, and Carol Coppola, our finance director in town, it will work with us on this presentation to the Finance Committee and eventually to the town. And since this is the first meeting that our body has got together to discuss the budgets and ancillary items, we will be working off a sheet that was in the packet. It's in the budget book, Carol's budget book, and it's pages 88 through 91. It's basically a summary of what the book is. It lists all of the various town departments and their budgets, salary and wages. It doesn't give the great detail, but the book itself gives greater detail. But there's enough information in the summary for us to get a good indication of which way budgets are going and how much it costs at the end of the line is there. It includes the school budgets in here, both the tech school and Monterey. We will talk briefly about their budgets, but not in any great detail. Carol is here to speak mostly to the budget book and the information contained in that budget book. And we will stick to that agenda. It also, we will speak, on that summary sheet, it doesn't include the wastewater or water department, collectively known as enterprise funds. But those numbers are covered in the book. When we need to talk to those numbers, we can reference those pages in there. There's a couple other things that I'd like to mention here to make sure we have an understanding of what we want to talk to, and basically some things we don't want to talk about tonight because we don't have information. And one of the number one thing that we were looking at that struck us immediately, and we'll talk about it, but I don't know how much detail, but is revenue projections. The revenue projections for the town is where the town obviously gets their monies from to pay for the expenditures. And that's covered in the general fund summary sheet on page 8 in the book. And again, that book is in the packet. It's on page 8. And that's the tally of the tax levy, the abatements, property taxes, motor vehicles, excise tax, hotels. It's, again, where the monies come from. What we had a question on, and we will work with the selectmen on this, I think they have expressed a little concern too in this department, that the forecast, which I understand the budgeting forecast, it's a conservative forecast on what revenues are projected for the fiscal year 2023. And those list about by departments of what they expect to take in for as far as revenues. And we as a board feel that maybe they're a little bit too low, but again we can talk to those. And Brian has done a great amount of detail into that. And I'll have him, when we get to that portion of the conversation, I'll have Brian talk about that, a possible suggestion on what he would like to see done. And then we'll see what the general feeling of the board is. I'm really not expecting to take any votes tonight. This is, again, just a preliminary look at the budgets, and it's just the first look at the budgets. We as a committee are committed for the next month to meet just about definitely twice a week, if not sometimes 3 times a week. 2 times a week we will be meeting on the budgets. the school budgets, the wastewater budgets. We will meet on the warrant articles, and we will meet on the CPC articles. We're expected to give written recommendations to the town for the town's interest. And even if it's non-monetary, in the town charter, is that it asks for us to give us our opinion, so we will do that if we can. Just going through my sheets here. I did have a chance, at Carol's suggestion, to poll the board beforehand with some general questions, which we did do. They got some questions back, and Carol answered those questions. And we will discuss those as we come along each department budget. In each of the department budgets, on March 10th and March 17th, the FinCom will be holding a joint session with the selectmen to bring in certain department heads that we've talked about and have given a list to the selectmen on that we'd like to bring in for further discussion on their budgets. After tonight's session, we may not see the need to bring in some of those departments that we had asked to come in. But regardless, March 10th and March 17th, we have reserved this room at 6 p.m. to meet with the selectmen and various department heads to go over their budgets. And I'll let Carol speak to what the current budget number is and percentages. But the budget is up this year, and I don't have the exact number, but it's roughly 6.5% up over last year. And again, this is the first attempt at the budget. And it's just to gather information, maybe make a couple suggestions, and take it from there. Does anyone else in the board have a comment or a question they'd like to go with, that everybody understands the format of what we're going to be talking about? And so with that, Carol, I guess we'll start off on maybe the first page of page 88, in the budget summary, the revenues of, explaining into not great detail, but detail for town citizens to understand where their monies are coming from and how they'll be spent.
Okay.
Right.
So page 88 is general fund only. So that is the major operating budget of the town. Includes departments such as public safety, the Department of Public Works, and planning and health and those other departments that are essential to general government functions. The revenues here are estimated for FY23 on page 88, and then compared, and provided details with regard to fiscal year 19 through 21 actual revenue, the budget for FY22, and then what is proposed for FY23. As I mentioned in an email earlier today, based on discussion with the Board of Selectmen, I offered an option to poll the departments and have some increases or changes in revenue. I provided that in an email today. We're estimating to increase those revenues by $415,000, which would bring the proposal up over what the actual 21 came in at. As you may be aware, at the fall town meeting, there were two special purpose stabilization funds that were established. One was for wastewater, the other is for affordable housing. A portion of traditional rooms and short-term rentals tax is going to be deposited to those funds. And in addition to that, the rate increase for that tax increased from 4% to 6%. So that has an effect on hotel and motel taxes and revenue that we will be receiving in the general fund. Other than that, I can tell you that the Department of Public Works, because of the budget constraints, had to reduce the amount of C&D or construction and demolition debris that they are able to accept at their facility, and therefore we could not be more aggressive than what we are proposing. Based on my email today, we're proposing a waste disposal increase in estimated revenue of $200,000 above and beyond what's in page 88.
Okay. Great. I do want one comment on the revenue projections. Like I said, we mentioned that we thought they were a little bit low when compared to, and I say that, they're low when compared to FY '21, which, as we all know, was a non-pandemic year. And FY '22, we went through a pandemic with the expectations that, there wouldn't be a lot of people around and revenues would be flat or low. But from all the indication I've read and seen so far, this summer, should be a great summer with lots of people coming to the Cape. And the town operates a lot like, local businesses. The summer season is when this town really makes a good chunk of their monies based on different receipts and stuff. So again, we'll work with selectmen on those revenue projections, and we'll see what happens there. And then, Brian, maybe this would be a good point for you to bring up what you thought about the revenue projections.
So I appreciate all the...
Cover your mic maybe right there.
Carol, I appreciate all the work you've done on this. It's become a magnificent obsession of mine to go through this book, mostly because there were certain things that caught my attention right away that I wanted to understand more. 13 of 16 departments were budgeted lower on revenue than in the previous budget. And I believe free cash will, remainder of free cash after this year will be $196 virtually. We're going to exhaust all of our free cash. So I guess you and I, over the past couple of years, I've asked before, because in my business life, I always budgeted my life off of actuals. And I felt that, I guess I wanted to ask why, as John alluded to, why in the budgeting process didn't you guys look at fiscal '21 as a budgeting tool, because it was so much closer to what we're likely to expect this year, if not this year being even better. So because of the numbers you use, the revenue is, I think, very, very suppressed.
So to make the assumption that we didn't look at 21 would be incorrect. So municipal budgets are based on appropriations first. These are estimated revenues. These estimated revenues before the tax rate is set change based on the actuals that we would have received for FY '22, based on the current trends that the receipts that have come into the town prior to the tax rate setting for that fiscal year. So, we are not going to be super aggressive on estimating revenue because we can't. If we don't make the numbers, we're in significant trouble. The Board of Selectmen would have to start cutting budgets during the fiscal year.
I mean, I understand that. I guess the overall on the administrator's budget, it has a feeling that it projects his sense of optimism because he's looking to add 3 new positions. There are certain things that are clearly being placed into the budget that have been not normally placed into the budget. And while I understand the issue relative to tax rates, it seems that it would be reasonably analogous to consider that the variation would not be so great as to skew it to a point that it wouldn't be something you could use as a point of comparison. And I have used it as a point of comparison for myself in trying to understand if these were budgeted, revenue was budgeted off of 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, what would we likely expect using those actuals?
All I can do is present my professional opinion and what the town should consider based on all of my years of experience in the municipal finance world.
So just so I understand, so your opinion is that we're likely to do less successfully this year in revenue than we did last year in the midst of a pandemic?
So these are estimated receipts in a very preliminary manner. As I mentioned, when the tax rate is set, it is completely up to the municipal finance department to determine what were the FY '22 actual revenues, what is the trend coming in for FY '23, and to estimate those revenues when the tax rate is going to be set based on those current trends.
But the tax levy, we're talking just about the tax levy dollars.
No, we're not.
We're not,
At all.
okay.
At all. Because what you're raising in taxes is also super dependent on your local revenue.
So when we set the tax levy, it's completely tied to what we do in revenue and all the other departments?
Correct.
Because I saw in the paper today, you had announced a preliminary tax rate number, and it may likely go up according to what it said in the Chronicle.
Could go up, it could go down.
Mark, any questions at all?
I'm going to pass right now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you, Carol. And more to follow on that. And the selectmen too have looked at that line item or that topic also, and I'm sure we'll be addressing it also, so. Okay, so moving on down to to page 89 in the book, if folks are following along at home, the fiscal year 223, town administrators proposed budget. What I expect that I'm going to do here is just basically go down the line, and if any of the members have a question, please just let me know, and we'll stop and move on. I think a lot of the budgets are zero, or even some are below zero. Some are pretty self-explanatory, and then some we're going to take real quick action, I think, to explain why certain expenses were high. And so as we move down the line here, the moderator, salary and wages, it's a non-issue there. Selectmen's salary expenses, there's flat there. Finance committee, we're flat. The reserve fund, that's typically what we put in last year, and we just budgeted again this year. These next, or at least, the next 4 departments, Carol, I believe are all your departments, the accountant,
Yes.
assessor, collection, and treasurer. And some of the budgets were up pretty substantial, but nothing too crazy. The only one we had just a quick question on, and you did answer it in your question, in the questions, was the expense of, let me just get that question.
I'm happy to address it. The town
Yeah,
of
the
Harwich
contract assessing, yeah.
outsources the valuation of properties. In FY '22, it was time for the town to go out to bid. When the town receives the bid back, there was only one response. The prices had increased significantly. So this reflects the pricing of the second year of that contract.
Okay. And thank you, Carol. Again, some of these things are going to be very quick to explain. Folks can see that there. The next line item, I did ask Carol that question there. And if you want to respond, how the answer to the question. That's the vacation and sick buy.
So there are proposed to be 8 anticipated retirements within the town, and we just learned on Monday of another. These are, Mass General Law says that when an employee leaves an employer or terminates employment, retires, they're paid out all of their vacation time. And then union contracts, I believe all of the union contracts have clauses in them with regard to sick time. Their employees can accrue up to 200 days of sick time, and upon retirement, they are paid 25% of that. So that's what that includes.
Okay.
Carol, can I just ask you, does that apply to new employees too?
Yes, if they're part of a union, yes.
Okay. The next one I had a question on, but I can't find my sheet. It was on the state aid form, and that's not on the form there, but we don't owe the state any money on that. That was the question I had.
So I didn't understand the question.
Yeah. Yeah, it was in this, maybe we'll circle back, and I thought I had that sheet right on the top here. Okay, I'll move along here. It wasn't much, but it was just a question that I had there. Medicare is, it's up 2%. That's not too bad at all. Administration. This is Joe Powers' town administration budget for his two admins that are in there, Danielle and Ellen. But also, the budget is up $148,000 and $148,618. Turns out there's two brand-new full-time heads in this department. One is for the new proposed cultural director position, and a new housing trust advocate. And so it's up $148,618. If you want to speak briefly to that, because I'm sure that's the majority of that increase, right?
That is.
Yeah.
That is. The Cultural Center Director is budgeted at $76,886. The Housing Advocate is $70,538. So that's $147,000.
Okay.
John, there's some questions.
Yeah.
You take the
Oh,
question?
go ahead. Yeah, sure. Yep.
Carol, now maybe you can't answer this question, but do you have any idea what the duties and responsibilities
I
of
cannot.
the cultural director?
I don't have
Yeah.
it yet.
On that topic, we will not be discussing anything to do with the Cultural Center tonight. Joe is working on a presentation to the selectmen, and when that's announced, I plan to be there also. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Okay.
I mean, other than, I make people understand that there is a salary budgeted this year, and it's in that line item right there. And you did give me a rough cost on benefits for those two people, or three people too, and I think it.
So in the state of Massachusetts, when you sign on to a health plan, you have three choices: an individual plan, a parent and child plan, or a family plan. So if it's an employee and their spouse, they are automatically on a family plan. We typically, when we budget for new positions, we typically look at a two-person plan, and we don't usually say it's a single parent and a child. So we end up having to budget for a family plan.
Okay, and that, just doing the math, the number for those benefits is roughly $70,000, so it's roughly, it's roughly $23,000 per head for benefits. It just FYI, I mean, when you add the salaries and the benefits, it's substantial. Okay, moving on, the next one is legal services. There wasn't any increase there. Information technology, this question was asked. It's up 38%, but, Carol's got a good explanation for that.
Sure. I mean, technology in Harwich needs to take a more prominent, stance in Harwich. We are so far behind with efficiencies, and so we've budgeted for subscription services for the new permitting software for both planning and health department and conservation department and building department. That's an annual subscription that the town didn't have before. And so that's one of the items. The other items are things such as virtualization of servers, new equipment for the IT department. And then currently the town is contracted with Barnstable County IT department to provide services and support. And so that is included in this budget as well.
Thank you, Carol. And so technically, so presently, I meant to say, that department is contracted out right now, right, to two
Correct.
separate sources, okay.
There is a budget for a full-time, one full-time personnel for next year, yes.
In this budget right here of
Correct,
146. Okay, thank you. Channel 18, which is what's broadcasting this meeting tonight, is the town's technology video channel, and they're up 38, or 9, no, actually, they're down. You take that back, they're down. And that account, just so the folks at home know, it's the PEG account. What's it, what's it stand for,
Public
Carol?
access.
The PEG account, what's the acronym for?
Public Education Government.
Government channel. And that's totally self-funding through cable a bill. On your cable, there's a piece of that bill that goes to the town, and it's totally self-funding. And I believe it has a balance in there as of June 30th, 2021, of $1,249,130. And that goes to the equipment, the salaries, and of running Channel 18. Next one is the town clerk's department. It's up 10%. Expenses is what's the main driver of that department, and it's up $61,000. Is that because of an election years, or?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's because of election years.
Okay. The next one is conservation. Their department is down 2.3%, so I don't think there's any issues there unless that's one of the departments that may be coming in. I don't know that yet. Because some of the departments, or I guess all the departments, have been extended an invitation to come in and speak with us again on the 10th and 17th on their budgets. And that plan's being put together right now. As soon as the board knows, I'll post it in our agenda, and I'm sure the selectmen will do the same. Next one is the town planner. Maybe we should take town planner, or a couple of these were combined or something?
So previously, all of the administrative personnel in planning, building, and health were all consolidated into a department that was labeled community development. That department no longer exists, and so those administrative personnel, their budgets needed to go out to the individual departments.
Okay.
So that's the increase here.
What makes up the town planner's budget now? Just the town planner?
The town planner, the administrative person, and some expenses in the department.
Okay, thank you. And again, anybody have questions on any of these things so far? Next one's Board of Appeals. Even though their budget looks like it's up a lot, 287%, in reality, they must be a clerk or something
It
they've
is.
hired for that
That's
department
correct.
of $2,000, which kind of skews that budget. So I don't think there's any issues with that budget. Next one there's three buildings that are lumped in together there. Albert House, the rec building, and the West Harwich School. It's down 15%, so I don't believe there's any issues there. Carol just alluded to community development. I imagine that budget will be eliminated completely then, right, Carol? The community development will be just eliminated?
All of the salaries and wages, they do share some expenses with equipment.
Okay. But that budget for this year is only $6,000, yeah, so.
Yes.
Public building repairs, what's that?
So it's just an
Repairs?
appropriation for if there were minor repairs that needed to be made on buildings. This is just an appropriation for,
Does that fall under Link Hooper's department?
no,
or
this falls under administration.
Administration, okay, thank you. Town FinCom reports, is this the annual report and things like that, or for 10,000?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That was a flat budget this year. Next one is the police budget. There's three line items in there: salary, wages, expenses, and capital outlay. Salary is only up 9%. Expenses are up 7%. I'm sure that probably has to do with inflation affecting the cost of materials and that they probably need to run a police department. The big number is the capital outlay, and that constitutes 3 police cars. There's been some discussion, should that be there? Should it be in the capital plan? And this is where it presently resides, and that's why it's up 200%. Is that correct, Carol, in the police department?
It's for 3 cruisers.
Yes. 3 cruisers. Any questions on police from anyone? Okay. Next one is ambulance service, which I guess is being rolled into the fire. So that's at 0, so that line item's been eliminated completely, and it rolls up under fire now or something?
Since the current budget, those budgeted line items were rolled into the fire department.
Okay. Next big increase here is the building salary and wages and building expenses. The big one is salary and wages of $115,000, up 33.8%. Overall, the budget's up 31.8%. And what's that?
It's for 2 administrative folks that were in community development.
Okay. Those are full-time people?
Yes.
Okay. So when those people moved over, community development budget followed
Correct.
them over there. Okay, that's a good explanation, okay. Emergency management, pretty much flat at 0.4% increase. Natural resources, this is Hugh's profits division, the shellfishes and natural resources group, pretty much flat at 1.1%. Pleasant Bay Alliance is up 6.2%. Is that like an outside consultant firm that we use for environmental reasons on Pleasant Bay or something, or?
That's correct.
That's what's, okay, thank you. Town engineer, they're actually down 2.7%. How is that job being handled right now, Carol? Is that through consultants and?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, okay. Highway, this is the DPW. They're actually down 0.1%, and that's a tremendous group out there. That's more than just highways. If you go to the dump every Saturday afternoon, you'll and go around that place, it's a pretty amazing organization. Link does I think a fantastic job out there, and it brings in quite a bit of revenue for the town. And the crew he is out there, I've personally walked around that area. He's got a maintenance staff out there that must save the town thousands and thousands of dollars with the maintenance that they do on all the town vehicles. I've seen him take out complete engines over there and rebuild them and put them back in. That's pretty much unheard of in towns in the Commonwealth. Most of that stuff is contracted out. And so it's a very commendable organization that Link does out there. And they're under budget there. Now, they do have some capital, which we're really not going to speak to tonight, but for some vehicles, it's an annual purchase out there. And the reason we're not really speaking to the capital tonight, for folks may be wondering why we're not speaking to that, is so far only FY23 budget for capital has been approved. The 5-year plan has not been approved yet, so I don't think it's prudent to talk about a budget that's not been approved yet. And FY23 may change. There's some things in there that we may change there, so more to follow on that. Snow and ice, that's an annual expense, obviously, for snow and ice. So street lights down 3%. Is that because of LED technology by any chance, or?
And we're also looking at actuals too,
Oh,
of prior
okay.
year. And there have been some improvements made, but we also know that the cost of electricity is going to increase, so
But are they switching over to LEDs? Are you aware of? You don't know.
I don't know.
I would guess they probably,
I think they're almost all LEDs in the town.
all LED, because I'm sure that's not only longer life and maintenance, but better maintenance, but
Less
less
electricity.
expensive. Cemetery expenses is flat. Cemetery does have some CPC articles, and we'll be talking about those later on in the month. The Board of Health, their budget has gone up 40%, 40.1%. And that's due to, I believe, and Carol will explain that, even though they converted a part-time person last year to full-time, I'm sure that might have some bearing on that.
So this year, just recently, the Board of Selectmen approved a full-time health inspector that was currently budgeted as part-time. The person should begin work within the next couple of weeks. There was sufficient funds to pay that person full-time wages through the end of June. However, the timing of the budget, the timing of the budget was not inclusive of that, of moving that to, we couldn't change the FY22 budget. So the increase here is moving from a part-time to a full-time position, and the administrative person coming out of community development going into health.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Carol. Any questions on this board or any other with proceedings so far? Thank you. Community Center, this is Carol and Carrie's group out there at the Community Center. Another great department that's run very well. As all the departments in town. I've met with every department head pretty much, and I'm very impressed with the quality of department heads we have in this town. The budget is flat out there. There are some, again, capital requests in Caroline's budget out there, and that will be come up during the capital discussion. Council on Aging. As we all know, Harwich has a population that's aging in town, and seems to be the biggest demographic that's growing in town is the aging population. And this is one of positions that's asking for another full-time head here, and I'll let Carol explain that again, too.
So the town administrator, this is the town administrator's proposed budget. The town administrator supported a program specialist to be added as a full-time position to that department. In addition to that, also expanded the nutrition program at the Council on Aging, and so that's the increase that you see in the expenses.
Okay. Thank you. Youth counselor, that's only up 2%. I don't think there's any discussion there. Veterans benefits, I don't believe there's any discussion there. Disability, there's nothing there. 500 to 0%. Human services, 0% increase. Library, salary and wages and expenses, they're up 1.9%, but I don't think there's any discussion there other than they do a great service in the town. I mean, if anything else, during the pandemic, it was I think a real lifeline to a lot of people in town, and still continues to be a lifetime, even though it's maybe looked at as maybe aging technology, but it's a great, tremendous service that they outreach there to different folks, different levels of people in town. They even offer, I guess it's a free Wi-Fi hotspot for folks who do not have internet service at their homes. You know, we all take it for granted that we do, but a lot of folks don't. And I've gone by that library late at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and there's people sitting outside doing whatever they're doing there. So it's a great service. And I know Brian's a great proponent of the library. Would you like to chime in on the library?
No, obviously, I'm a big fan of the library, and the librarians think they do a spectacular job.
Yeah.
And it's a vital, I mean, I don't know many resources in this town that are used much more than the library.
So thank you, Jenny. Next one is recreation. This is another great department run by Eric Beebe that provides definitely lots of recreational opportunities to many young children. My wife actually took advantage of swimming lessons there as a young girl here in town. They reach many people, again, all socioeconomic backgrounds. Does a great service there, and their budget is actually down 1.5%. Recreation does have some CPC requests coming before us. I spoke with Eric today, and he's tentatively scheduled to come in on March 15th to speak about the request that he has in there for new pickleball courts and new basketball courts out at Brooks Park. I am happy to see out at Brooks Park, the lighting looks like it's finally getting done out there after many years of, for various reasons. I think it's going to be a great addition for this summer, and all the many people that come here during the summertime. The harbor master, his budget is up 0.5%. He runs a, no pun intended, but a very tight ship down at the harbor, and that's a great asset to the town. I mean, the town graciously put a lot of money into the harbors a couple years back, and I think it's by far the #1 marina destination on Cape Cod.
So I have a question, John.
Sure.
So Carol, relative to the harbor master, the budget reflected them with a reduced revenue of $147,500, and then you added back $63,000. So it's about an $80,000 still loss being shown. It's below, it's less than the year previous. So I'm curious as to why, given they've gotten an increase based on their moorings and their dockage, the bids that are coming in for the restaurant are higher than they had last year. I'm curious as to why the harbor master's number, for example, would be off so much.
I think I've already had my explanation. I mean, we estimate revenues based on experience that we have with the entire town. We have more, we can't come to, the exact number that you want, because if appropriations aren't, it would leave the Board of Selectmen in a terrible position. So like I said, when 22 is completed, we review actual 22, we look at the trends for 23. When the tax rate is set, revenues are adjusted accordingly. I can't be more aggressive than what we've been.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, D'Angelo.
I understand you're doing that, but you can do that another way also. You can go in with what you think might be a higher revenue coming from them, and then change it if it doesn't happen.
You could.
And the reason for doing that is that you set up different things to do rather than washing it out. I think it's a much more positive. If you think about the harbors and what happened last year in terms of health and those things, and nobody being here, and now you can't wander around without people doing stuff, buying houses and everything. So the odds are much better, I think.
I mean, the trouble and the risk here is that if your revenues don't come in, you have to cut your budget
Oh, fine. cut the
in the
budget.
middle of the year.
No, you didn't hear
I
me.
mean, that's significant.
You didn't hear me. You said you lower the number that you're gonna put in and wait to see if it gets to be higher, needs to be higher. You also could put it in higher and then wait at the same day and reduce it. So there's no problem, but if you had it at the higher level, they're not gonna be out spending that money then, because it's not a budget.
Well, then the board would have to make a decision not to use the tax levy, not to use the entire tax levy. That would be, because otherwise they put themselves at peril. If we increase revenue $2 million, which leaves $2 more million for the town to increase its operating budget, and that revenue doesn't come in, your appropriations have already been budgeted. Your people have already been hired. Your expenses may have already been incurred.
Excuse me.
So that's,
I'm clearly not speaking properly then. What you've told me is that you want to put it in based on the number you think it is, so that if necessary, you could go lower or whatever. But you could also go higher. But why not put it in on the same day? If you put it in at a higher level, I think that whatever the harbor master will generate much more money this year than it did last year. So if you put that in, and then you look and see what happens just before the budget comes through, to be voted on, then you can reduce it.
okay, so let's do a scenario here. So if we increase the harbor master's budget or estimated revenues by $1 million, I know it's a big number. That would give the Board of Selectmen another $1 million to spend in appropriations. That would give them plenty of space to use that money, and if they did appropriate that money and the revenue wasn't realized, then what would happen? But that's what you're saying. If we increase revenue, what we're saying then is, the Board of Selectmen, we want you to ignore this. Or the town administrator, we want you to ignore this.
The piece I don't understand is you told me you put it in at this number, and then just before the budget is voted, you take a shot at changing it if it needs to be changed.
We don't take any shots. So, no, it's, well,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Right? And I'm saying you could do it the other way.
I don't agree. I'm sorry.
But
You and I
could.
don't disagree, but I don't agree.
Dan?
If revenues come in higher than what you estimated, doesn't that eventually whip itself into free cash?
Yes.
And I think that may be a topic that we can discuss with the selectmen also, is the free cash. Because there is some thought of building up a bigger free cash at the taxpayer's expense. And then the following budget season, we have free cash, but it's a discussion that needs further discussion, I think.
Well, the reason why free cash was certified as high as it was is because we couldn't have a town meeting in May of 2020. We didn't have a town meeting until September of 2020. Free cash had already been certified,
Okay.
so it wasn't used. So once that happens, that goes back into the calculation of the new number for free cash.
Okay.
So that's why, one of the reasons why it was set as high as it was.
Because the free cash, it lags behind the budget a year or so then?
No,
No?
free cash is typically certified
September.
in Harwich.
Yeah.
This year, it was certified on August 16th. Typically, it's somewhere in September.
Okay.
I mean, we did that intentionally so that town meeting would have the free cash available in the fall, when it had town meeting in the fall.
I see. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the harbor master? Okay. Recreation, harbor master. Brooks Academy Commission, Museum Commission, their budget is up 8.6%. May sound like a lot, but that reflects a dollar amount of $1,106. I'm sure it's expense, any idea what the expense driven there, so.
Yes.
Historical Commission, wow. Again, another big number. I just saw this for the first time. The number is up 582%, 0.9%, and, but that, I'm not sure what that, probably another expense somewhere along the way?
It's a clerk,
A clerk?
yes.
Okay. Another part-time position, okay. Celebrations?
I think
is-
it's just a recording clerk.
Okay.
It's a recording clerk, not another position.
Okay. What's a recording clerk?
So a secretary for, let's say.
Right. Yeah.
Finance Committee hires a secretary to
okay.
do minutes.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Golf, they're up 4.6. Most of it's in salary and wage items. Carol, we did ask this question to Carol, and it's inflation, and what was the other?
So minimum wage has
Minimum.
increased for all the seasonal folks.
Okay.
And so in order to staff the golf department, to be able to operate the number of hours that golf typically is open, have to pay the new minimum wage rates. So that's mostly what this increase reflects.
Okay. And it should be noted, too, that the golf pays, and maybe Carol, you can be more precise, a good chunk of their operating budget with golf revenues, correct? Yeah. So- And I've been remiss in people on the calls out there. I don't know if Dale is out there, one of our board members. If he is, I don't know how you can signal that you'd like to talk.
Yeah,
Or,
we had a minor mistake in the program, so, or in the agenda.
Mhm.
We have a different code for the meeting. The code is actually, instead of the one described there, it's 926-182-525.
so people aren't dialing in or have dialed in?
They probably had the wrong code to try to dial in the first place.
People
so-
connecting to the agenda that's posted on the website have a message saying the meeting hasn't started yet.
Oh, huh.
So,
Because I triple-checked that code there, so, but anyway, can it be straightened out, Matt, or?
We have to use that code because it's how it's set up. Jamie set it up earlier today with the code I just described.
Oh,
I just said, so could you possibly contact him in some way to let him know that that's the new code?
to do what?
To
tell Dale.
let him know that that is the new code.
Oh. Could you do that, Matt? Mark?
Let me try.
Okay.
John, can I just say one thing?
Sure, go ahead. Sorry.
Carol, I didn't submit this question ahead of time, and you probably don't know the answer, but I did note that the minimum wage went up, at least in Mass, from $13.50 to $14.25, only 75 cents an hour. So that's something maybe when we get the golf people in to see if a lot of that increase in salary, 68,000, that's a lot of man-hours to attribute to a 75-cent per hour wage increase. And I don't expect an answer on that, but that does seem, if it isn't primarily attributable to a minimum wage increase, that's a big increase.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that the FY '22 budget was reduced to come into the Board of Selectmen's requirement, and so staffing had to be reduced in that department. So he has completely restored his staff.
And Mark, that was one of the committees that we asked to come in and speak
Okay.
to Michael and Joe.
John, can I ask a question?
Sure.
It is my understanding that the golf course covered all their expenses historically, significantly.
So,
And so does the harbor master.
I don't think if you include debt, though, Andrew, I don't think that's entirely true. I mean, they may cover operational expenses, but when you add in benefits and debt with some departments, I don't know if there's any department that is totally self-sufficient.
if you were to turn to page 32 in your book, this allocates employee benefits and debt service to the golf department. So the total expenses that would be allocated and the expenses directly of the department, there's just over $2.2 million.
Okay.
And the revenue generated, which is going to increase based on our proposed increases here, would reduce the amount of would further reduce the amount of taxes that would be associated with the golf department, which would make your statement absolutely true.
It's the way it's been for years.
So they're totally self-sufficient, Carol, with revenues?
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
I mean, this does not allocate any administration time, any treasurer collector's time, any other department's time to that department.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on to, let me just check off these people here. Okay.
Do you have Dale's cell phone number here? Do you want to unlock it and trust me?
Under Dale Kennedy. Thank you, Mark. Going down through, the next column is state assessments. There's some big numbers here with benefits and health. And if you just want to, I guess, tick down through these like we did but I guess most of these are driven by the organizations that was requesting it, right? So.
Correct.
I mean, we don't really have a recourse with a lot of these, right? I mean, it is what it is.
That's correct.
Basically, so. Mark, we talked about it earlier, but do you have any questions with that at all? Or?
I just have a question, and I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with this, but if you have the same head count from year to year, does your Barnstable County assessment, can it go up almost as high as what this is here?
This is the assessment that they're provided to us. It's
Right.
based on wages that are paid, and as your wages increase, the assessment's going to increase. As the number of folks that have retired increases, the assessment increases.
Okay, so it has some bearing on the
Yes,
retiree amount, okay.
yes.
So, just one more question. Could you anticipate increases like this years going forward? I mean, in that, historically, have they been that high?
I would have to go back and calculate them.
Just-
If
yeah.
I mean, I can absolutely do that. They're
Oh, no,
right here.
It just is a big increase in,
Mhm.
some of the retirement systems that I participate in. They were like a kind of a level contribution, level fund. Just in the future, if you need to anticipate that big of an increase, that's all I was at. And I don't want you to go back.
Well, I think that that the population, as we talked about, is aging, and so as more folks retire, and they're replaced by employees that will eventually retire, or it's anticipated that they will, I think you're going to continue to see that number increase, and as wages increase as well.
You know, along with health insurance and everything else associated, so.
That is a big line.
There is one nice item in here that I like to see that we contribute to annually. It's called OPED, which means Other Post-Employment Benefits, and Carol can speak much more eloquently about what that all entitles, but it's mostly when people retire, it's their health benefits for their retirement. And we're contributing as a town $250,000 towards that fund, but like other municipalities around the country, that fund is unfunded. And Carol, would you have that number offhand, the top of your head by?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
It's a big number, though, right?
It is.
I
It's
mean,
like
and
somewhere around $42 million.
$42 million, right. And that's just for town employees, right? The school has, the town's paid for, but the schools have their own OPED 2 account, right?
Well, the school employees that were associated with the town of Harwich are included in that. The school personnel that's associated with Monterey are not included in
They're
that.
not. Oh.
But there are a number of folks from the, Harwich schools that are still present in receiving benefits from the town.
Okay, thank you. And then the water department and wastewater department, which we'll get into next, they have their own OPED account also.
No, it's
No?
all the same.
Oh, I thought they had their own.
The
OPED.
Water Enterprise Fund funds OPEB
Oh,
$50,000 a year.
Okay,
So that's above and beyond this $250,000.
okay. But is that part of the 42 million, or?
Yes.
Okay, great. I thought they had their own OPED fund. Great, thank you for clearing that up. So that brings us to the schools. And even though it's in the budget book, we're not going to get into a great technical discussion on the school systems or their programs. Those two schools are part of the department heads meeting. When they come in, they'll be discussing this. But tonight, we can just briefly talk about them. The tech school budget, Cape Cod Community Tech, brand-new school, beautiful school. Their budget is up 35%. That equates to $543,005, and that's primarily driven by headcount out of the tech school. Of the schools that belong to the tech school region, Harwich had the most school kids that are going back to that school. The headcount increased by 20 students. So that's the main driver of that is the headcount increases, and that also is shared in the capital expenditures of the school. But they'll be coming in and talking to us more about their programs and everything else. The Monterey school system budget that was one line item that fell off the page, Carol.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I just noticed that.
If you
and
turn
I-
to page 67, you could see the schools
Yeah.
there.
Okay. Why don't we just quickly do that so I don't misquote myself on numbers here. Again, Monomoy School System, Dr. Carpenter, Michael McMillan, will be coming in to speak to us about that. I'm sure lots of folks have heard that there's a new funding formula out there that's being proposed. I'm not going to talk to any great lengths about it, other than it clearly would benefit Harwich, the new funding formula. And it's based on lots of different factors, which will probably be discussed when the school comes in. And I'm not sure when that could be implemented. I'm sure the town administrator is still figuring it out via town warrants and stuff like that, but Scott Carpenter will be talking about that. But as the budget stands now, we're going to be funding it with the old school system funding formula, which was set up when the region was started. The budget increase is roughly $679,950. It's up 2.49%. And I'm sure a lot of that is salary-driven, too. Do you have much expertise in the budget, Carol? We should just wait to much expertise in explaining the increases at
I don't
Monterey?
know, I'm not familiar
Yeah.
with.
Okay,
way
that's
those-
fine. So that's the story with the schools. More to follow on that. And I'm not sure how this new funding formula will get implemented, but that will sort it out by the selectmen of the towns and eventually the town meetings of the town. So overall, the budget is up 6.5%, Carol, is the budget? Is that the-
6.65%.
6.5%. Do you have now what's the best way to quote it? With the overlay in it or out of the overlay in it? I mean, we do derive the 450 from the taxpayers, so.
So I don't know what page, are you referring to a particular page?
I just wonder what the total town's budget is.
With or without the abatement money.
Yeah.
So the total town's proposed budget is 72 million. This is for the general fund only, or do you want all funds?
Yeah, all fine, yeah.
All funds, okay. $79,075,393.
Okay. And that includes the abatement or the assessment?
I would say no, because we don't budget for it.
Don't budget for it. How does it get paid for?
It happens in tax rate setting.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and that's the,
Question?
yeah, oh, yes, Dan?
Yes, can we turn to page 15,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, if there's any other summary questions that folks would like to ask Carol, please do so.
Well, the table on page 15 is general fund expenditure summary. And I have a question about the transfer to other funds towards the bottom of the schedule there. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge increase of 253%, or $1.3 million. I'm sure you can explain it, but
Yes.
I just
Yes.
wondering what it is.
Yeah, that's in the
So,
water. We'll
For
see.
the proposed budget, we're pulling all of the wastewater debt out of the general fund
Okay,
and recording it in the wastewater enterprise fund, but it's still supported by tax dollars. So that's the $1.8 million that you see here, transfer to other funds.
Yep.
That's total debt for wastewater,
wastewater.
yes.
Okay, so we won't see that again.
See it in the wastewater
The
budget.
wastewater,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes.
that's the budgets we're going to talk about next. And the good news there, I guess if we want to call it good news, that flow has actually started flowing
Yeah.
to Chatham. I believe there's 2 houses currently hooked up, and
Oh, yeah?
flow is flowing. But as we'll see in the next budget, that has ramifications with now our commitment to Chatham kicks in of 24% of the operating costs. So with that said, why don't we move over to the wastewater and water department budgets? I believe they're on pages 29, what is it, 72 and 74. Okay, we've got the water department, which is run by Dan Pelletier. Again, another outstanding department head. I can't say enough about these department heads. Dan is very wise in his young age, and he's got a tremendous responsibility, maneuvering with this wastewater thing that's before the whole town, as we all know. Tremendous costs involved, very complicated issues, but Dan is rise to the challenge, doing a very commendable job. We'll start with the Water Department bill budget. And folks in the audience should know that these budgets are kind of like the PEG fund. They're covered with water retained earnings. The water bills that you pay pays for the operating costs and of the Water Department. Not capital though, right, Carol? Just water, just operating costs?
The capital is
Yeah,
paid from
retained
retained
earnings.
earnings or from long-term debt.
Long-term debt, okay. Their budget is down 0.2%, so there really isn't much discussion there. I think one of the reasons why is that some of the debt is starting to fall off a bit. Some people have retired, and they've been replaced by newer employees with less salaries. Anything else you can add to the Water Department?
Yep, so the Water Department's technical services is increasing, it's proposed to increase in FY '23 to support, because the debt is being reduced, they have increased other line items in their expenses to support the needs of that department. Where their budgets have been pretty much streamlined, zero over the past couple of years. So they took the opportunity to increase it. Also, their utilities, they're anticipating some pretty significant increases in utilities. You know, their chemical prices have increased significantly, as well as their other, even PVC pipe
Yeah,
has
tremendous.
increased significant, the cost, and so those are reflected in their budget.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any Water Department, Dan?
Indirect costs. The enterprise fund pays indirect costs, which are chargebacks for support services it gets from the town.
Correct,
So do those monies go into the general fund?
correct.
Okay.
Those are on the revenue page that you looked at page number 88, was it? Those are reflected on the revenues, the estimated revenues on page 88. There's a line item, and the print is pretty small, so if that's I hope that's not a
Angela's gonna have
problem.
a problem, right?
But there's a water enterprise fund and sewer enterprise fund,
Oh, yeah.
indirect costs.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other water questions? Moving on to wastewater. As I mentioned, flow is flowing to Chatham now, which is good. But that's the good piece, that we're finally going to use a very expensive system that the town has paid for. But again, those costs, the operational costs are going to increase because we have an agreement. Is it 24%, Carol, of the operating costs of the treatment plant in Chatham?
Treatment
Is
plant,
it?
I'm sorry?
Is it 24% of the operating costs of the wastewater?
It's 23%.
23%, okay. And that really doesn't matter if it's 2 gallons that are flowing through there or 200,000 gallons. It's, then there are flow rate charges, but it's still a 23% charge. And Dan, to your point, that's where that 1.8 million is showing up there as the debt change for their budget is up, even though it's significant. It's that main driver is the debt on the wastewater, which is probably going to continue, right, Carol, going forward now. So, and that's one line item in the capital. I don't have the capital plan with me, Brian, but I think it was $40 million estimated in the capital plan for a year, next year or the year after. So, if you see it quickly, that's fine, but I believe that's a big number, I believe, for phase 3.
The capital plan is located on page 85. There are 2 projects in there for FY
There we go.
'24
Good.
totaling $32 million.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's FY '24. So next year, estimate, again, this plan has not been approved yet, so it's just a tentative draft plan. The only one that has been approved is FY '23. I guess we can speak to it briefly. Does anyone have any questions on the wastewater? Brian and I are members of the Capital Outlay Committee, and we are actively participating in putting this budget together. The only column that has been approved is FY '23, and the number down the bottom is down there. Majority of the items, as you can see, the funding source is with free cash or PEG accounts, which is the Channel 18 again, or retained earnings for the water department. Going out the next 4 years, you can go down to the last column, number on the bottom, $80 million is what's being projected over 5 years. And that's just on projects that we know of right now. Again, hasn't been approved, don't want to talk about it too much, but the folks listening out there, it's more than an operating budget that we look at here. We also look at the capital plan and try to make some, assumptions and recommendations to the town so that they're fully aware when they commit to something that it's not only 1 year that they're committing to, but multiple years that they're committing to. And with that, I believe that's the budgets. Again, the only other 2 items that we're not going to talk about, because we don't have too much information on them, is the warrant articles that's being built right now. And that'll be on our agenda, I believe, next March 8th. I think we'll have some warrants on there. I'm not quite sure. I can't even forget the agenda, what I put on the agenda, but it will be coming up shortly. I know I did put the CPC on that, the projects that have been approved in CPC. That's the other thing that the town will be asked to pay for. That comes out of the CPC, Community Preservation Commission. That's the fund that's funded through your property taxes at 3%, whatever your assessed property tax is. If no one else has any other questions for Carol, I'd like to thank you very much, Carol.
Sure.
It's been very informative to me, I think for the board. I think the folks that do listen in, even though they may not listen in directly, I do know folks do look at the meeting on their own time on YouTube, which is very helpful. And I encourage people to come to the meetings. We do have an open meeting now, and we're very happy to entertain people coming here, take questions from the audience. This is, at the end of the day, folks, this is your budget up here. We're just looking at it and trying to do our best to try to evaluate it and give our best opinions on the budget, working hand in hand with the selectmen, the town administrator, and Carol on this. This isn't one against all. We're all in this together up here and trying to do the best for the town. So I implore you all to get involved and come to the meetings. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Carol, very much for coming here tonight and explaining it to us. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Comment?
Comments?
Completely off budget. I was looking at our strategic plan earlier, and we should really go back and review that and ask ourselves,
Sure.
what have we done? Oh, down the road, after we get this
No,
stuff.
be happy to, Dan. Next one on the agenda is a discussion on frequency and future of committee meetings. I briefly outlined earlier in the evening what our schedule is. It's very aggressive. I do appreciate anyone and everyone coming as best you can to the meetings. They're going to be in person. We will also be doing a simulcast, and for members that can't be here. We do need a quorum of 5 people. We have an 8-man board, so I do appreciate that. And it's going to be very busy, definitely Tuesday, Thursdays. We have a special one coming up on the 14th. I outlined that in a note today to you folks. That's the joint meeting that the FinCom will have with the selectmen, where Capital Outlay will present their FY23 budget and their 5-year plan to us, and that's on the 14th of Monday. And it's going to be held at the beginning of the selectmen's meeting.
Right, they agreed to put it first
Yeah.
up in the agenda.
Right. So we do not have to wait to the end of the meeting. You're more than welcome to stay, because I'm sure there will be other budget discussions. Mike McCaskill, Chair of the Select Board, has made it a promise to put budget-related items on the agenda every week until town meeting. There was a very good one last week on Carol's, the main drivers, of the budget. And she spoke to those main drivers today. I'll just highlight those. It's the debt that the town, these are increases, they're not what it is. But the debt drove it, the Monterey schools, the tech school, health insurance, retirement, IT contract, police cruisers, personnel wages, the brand-new position at the cultural center, more to follow on that. Housing authority, advocate, which is a brand-new position, program specialist, brand-new positions, expanding the COA, cost of council on aging program, part-time health inspector to full-time, general insurance premiums, anticipated retirements, assessed valuation firm, town clerks, public safety training, and transfer to wastewater for their operating budget. We've talked about the capital budget. So the meetings, the next meeting is scheduled for March 8th. I do plan to have, I had other departments scheduled, but then Brian and I met with Mike McCaskill, the chairman of the select board, and town administrator Joe Powers earlier in the week to form a strategic strategy amongst ourselves to get this budget process as quickly and thoroughly as we can, because we have a committee, as a committee, have to have written recommendations to the town administrator and the selectmen by March 31st, which isn't a lot of time for an $80+ million budget. But I can guarantee you that the members of this committee are working very hard on understanding the budget. I think Carol's discussion tonight was very helpful. Tuesday's meeting, I'm bringing in Ellen Chauvin. I hope I said her name right. She's chairperson of the...
Shovlin?
Yeah, Ellen
Shovlin.
Yeah. She's chair of the Open Space and Real Estate Commission. They have a CPC article called Spruce Woods Acquisition. It's a $950,000 project. Portion of it's being paid with CPN. It's a very complicated formula for me, but Ellen will explain it all. And Mike Locke will also be a part of that discussion because there is some tie-in with them. Then Mike is also going to speak independently on a project called the Heritage Trail Phase 2 on the Bank Street Bogs project. If I have any more information on budgets, I will pass them on at that meeting, but we'll further the discussion on the budgets. Maybe the selectmen will have more details. They'll have more information on their Monday night meeting on the 7th, and we'll pass it on in that meeting there. Like I say, the 10th and 17th have been reserved for department head meetings. The 14th will be the capital outlay, and then that leaves us 15th, 22nd, 24th, 29th, and 31st to vote on these various budgets, CPC articles, and warrant articles. So it's going to be a very aggressive schedule. I do appreciate you. If you're not going to be here, definitely let me know so we can maintain this quorum of 5 people. The good news there is Dale is back from Florida, and our other member, Karen Doucette, will be back, I believe, the 12th. So we'll have more members present. Dan?
Do we get paid overtime for those?
Yes,
extra
you
meetings?
get double what you got last year, Dan. How's that, huh? Yeah, so
Yes.
gracious I am, okay?
Double times 0 is 0.
Is 0. That's the last number, I think. So if anybody has anything else to say, we can say it now, or I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second? Okay. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. And thank you very much.
We're off, right?
Nope, we're still green, we're still red, so. There we go.
So now,
Well, gentlemen.
Angela, unless, unless I'm mistaken, okay, now that the meeting is over, unless I'm mistaken, my concern with this appears to be